There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie. For instance, number 1, you can never have sex. Big no-no!
In the 1978 classic horror movie Halloween, little 6-year-old Michael Myers sees his big sister Judith go upstairs with her boyfriend to have sex. He politely waits for them to finish, lets the boyfriend leave, and then stabs her to death. Director and co-writer John Carpenter said, "It has been suggested that I was making some kind of moral statement. Believe me, I'm not. In Halloween, I viewed the characters as simply normal teenagers." Co-writer Deborah Hill said that the movie coming across as a morality play was unintentional. "I was raised a Catholic schoolgirl, and what leaked into the script is my Catholic sensibility." It's not shocking that misogynistic themes leaked into the horror genre. They've always been there. Before movies and books, how have urban legends and folklore both been shaped by sexual fears about women and molded them? From succubi to soul ties to toothy vaginas to sex with ghosts and plots of popular scary movies, what can be said about sex and horror in history? Let's talk about it for Halloween. We're about to get into some heavy sexual topics, but you know what kind of sex isn't scary? Masturbation. It's fun, it's healthy, and it's consensual. That's why Bellesa sent me all of these amazing new toys. Bellesa is a company created by women to not just improve your sexual wellness, but to empower you to embrace, explore, and celebrate your sexuality. My favorite thing about Bellesa toys are how small and quiet they are, making them perfect for on-the-go pleasure. Bellesa already spoiled me before, and I wasn't sure they could top the last batch, but take a look. I've told you about my favorite, the Thump, which is designed to be the go-to for your external needs, but there's other goodies too. This is my new favorite, the Whisper Wand. It's quiet but powerful and comes in 6 different speeds. Plus, it's 100% body-safe silicone. But the Rose is a silent and splash-proof testament to the beauty of modern technology. Yes, splash-proof because you will be splashing. With a suction feature that comes in 10 modes, you can definitely find yourself losing time to this beauty. That's why everybody has been talking about it from Twitter to TikTok. It's world famous. Are you curious about the Rose? You're in luck. Bellesa and I are sending out free roses with every order placed through the link in my description box. If you're curious to find out the hype about the Rose, scroll down and sign up to my giveaway. Treat yourself, on me, and Bellesa of course. And thank you Bellesa for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get to the history. Before movies, there was art, mythology, and folklore. To truly understand sex and horror, it's important to note the ways in which sex is powerful. At the base biological level, sex sustains the human species by creating new lives. In ancient Greek and Roman mythology tales, the gods often descended from the heavens, took on a physical form, and had sex with humans or raped them, usually irrevocably altering their lives. On a modern religious level, the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, sex has traditionally been marketed as a powerful gift from God to a married man and woman. In patriarchal societies where legacy and inheritances have always been important, the fear of infidelity on the woman's part has reinforced marital sex's powerful importance and purity on the part of women. The wrong kind of consensual sex, premarital, extramarital, homosexual, is a powerful transgression that can send you to an eternity of fiery damnation, depending on interpretation. While authors of the Bible wrote that God prohibited homosexuality, he clearly sanctioned incest in Genesis, when the offspring of Adam and Eve have so much sex that it powers human history. Accordingly, the Bible is full of other sexual horror stories. In the story of Lot, angry residents of Sodom and Gomorrah gather outside of his home and demand he hand over his male guests to be sexually assaulted. Instead, Lot offered his 2 virginal daughters. Modern interpreters point out that Lot is deemed righteous for this act, for fulfilling his duty as a host in ancient Mesopotamia, protecting his guests by any means necessary. In this ancient horror story, the bodies of young women instead are ripe for sacrifice. After the downfall of the wicked and sinful cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot's own daughters get him drunk and rape him without his knowledge to continue the human species because they believe there are no men left on earth. This is horror before the horror genre was even created. While not a predominant theme in medieval art, artists of the Renaissance often depicted the rape of Lot, with the story used as a cautionary tale about the dangerous seductive skills of women. For example, in Giovanni Francesco Guerri's Lot and His Daughters, the women wear revealing clothes as they pour their father a drink. Jean-Francois de Troyes was more frank in his 1745 depiction, showing Lot's daughters partially nude. In Sumerian mythology, Lilith was a goddess of fertility and witchcraft. In medieval folklore and Jewish mystical texts like Alphabet of Ben Sirah, Lilith was credited as Adam's first wife, who in some versions was refused re-entry into the Garden of Eden when she had sex with the archangel of death Samael. Unsatisfied with her forced subservience to Adam, Lilith created a race of demons, or Lilim, who became succubi. The succubi, which has been a recurring trope in horror, required semen to live and preyed on sleeping men by raping them. While not mentioned in the Judeo-Christian Bible, the succubus became a real part of medieval belief systems as much as magic, seeping into secular culture. It was urban legend that Pope Sylvester II, a scholar who advocated for math and astronomy, willingly consorted with a succubus lover named Meridiana because he had been rejected by a human woman. His documented intellectualism was subversive in 999 when he ascended to the papacy, and this is how a historian and monk named William of Malmesbury colored him in the 12th century. From the 12th century onward, sex with demons was a common matter of interest for Christian thinkers and demonologists. They philosophized about whether or not demons seduced humans, if humans gave in consensually, and why or why not. Said Pope Innocent VIII in 1484, "Many persons of both sexes, unmindful of their own salvation and straying from the Catholic faith, have abandoned themselves to devils, incubi, and succubi. Such devils hinder men from performing the sexual act and women from conceiving." In King James's 1597 work, Demonology, the legend of succubi had evolved into a genderless demonic entity that not just appeared to men, but also as incubi to women as well. While many modern people believe the sensation of waking up to a succubus or incubus is linked to sleep paralysis, that was not the common belief in human history. To believers, these sexual romps could result in demonic offspring. Early Christian bishops and writers like Gregory of Nyssa and William of Auvergne proposed that demons and women could have children, known as cambions. In Geoffrey of Monmouth's fictitious The History of the Kings of Britain, which was taken as historically accurate until the 16th century, the powerfully knowledgeable magician Merlin was born from a woman who mated with an incubus. In the case of Merlin, demonic offspring tales explain power and abilities, but they also explore themes of spiritual contamination and encourage sexual repression. If sex is a gift from God between a married man and woman, and in more modern religious views we are all a reflection of God, how does one explain poorly behaved children, neurodivergent children, or evil children before modern science? You, the human parent, must have fucked up somewhere. In Judaism, the half-demon children known as Banim Shovavim are created when a human is seduced or they masturbate and their semen is stolen. Wrote Jack Zients on Jewish monster hunting. In addition to inspiring rabbinic exhortations for young men to keep their hands out of their pants, the Banim Shovavim add an additional fear to funerals. The family had to worry that the departed or the departed's human children might be attacked by his Banim Shovavim children. During the witch hunts and trials that raged across Europe from 1400 to the 1770s, sex with demons and the devil was central to accusations and false confessions under torture. An interrogator quoted in The Witch, or on the Illusions of Demons, wrote, "Witches claim they are so overcome by sexual pleasure that they swear there is no pleasure like it on earth. And I can think of several reasons why that would be true. First, because those rebellious spirits put on the most pleasing face. Next, because their virile members are of uncommon size. With their faces, they delight the eyes, and with their members, they fill up the most secret parts of the witches. And beyond that, they pretend to be in love with them, which is perhaps the most welcome of their miserable miracles. And probably they can stimulate something very deep inside the witches, by means of which these women have greeted pleasure more than with men." Uncommon size? How big are we talking here? In Malleus Maleficarum, or The Hammer by Heinrich Kramer, he even described how the alleged sex with demons happened, writing, "It is frequently the case that the sorceresses were seen lying on their backs in fields or woods, naked above the navel and gesticulating with their forearms and thighs. They keep their limbs in an arrangement suitable for that filthy act, while the incubus demons work with them." As Julia Garrett points out, this was probably a description of masturbation, not demonic evil. The sex with demon story served not just to convince the accusers of the veracity of demonic evil, but the accused themselves. Explained Walter Stevens. Sex with demons was so important because it was the most intimate form of physical contact imaginable. You can't have sex with something imaginary. These stories were underpinned by long entrenched misogynistic beliefs in demonic and evil sex, eventually leading to the slaughter of 40 to 60,000 men, women, and children who didn't fit patriarchal standards or who were simply victims of circumstance. Anybody could be accused of mating with the devil or kissing his anus, called the osculum infame and discussed in A History of Oral Sex. Demons and the devil changed not just genders to move from compromised human to human, but ages. According to one Margaret Johnson in 1633, one girl of 12 said definitely that she knew the devil very well, that he was a boy a little bigger than herself, and that he was her love and lay with her every night. And another girl named Below, age 15, said her mother had taken her to the Sabbath when she was very young, and that being a little wench, this man devil was then a little boy too, and grew up as she did, having been always her love, and caressed her day and night. While demons are non-human entities or fallen angels, ghosts are human spirits.
Bring it on! Kiki's my middle name, bitch!
That was the best that I've ever had. Oh, Mrs. Huey Kane. Doesn't it just have a ring to it? Baby? Where are you going? Call me.
In Ryan Murphy's American Horror Story, these ideas were fused when the devil, lacking human DNA as a fallen angel, possesses a ghost and rapes a human woman who believes she's having sex with her husband. This event leads to the conception of the Antichrist, whose eventual birth leads to the apocalypse. Notions of ghost sex are particularly rooted in spectrophilia, or sexual attraction to ghosts, and centuries of claims from people that they've had sex with phantoms. Numerous famous people have claimed that they've had sex with ghosts, including Anna Nicole Smith, Kesha, and Lucy Liu. Said Liu, "Some sort of spirit came down from God knows where and made love to me. It was sheer bliss. I felt everything. I climaxed. And then he floated away." Anna Nicole Smith claimed that her visitor was more frequent, saying, "A ghost would crawl up my leg and have sex with me at an apartment a long time ago in Texas. I used to think it was my boyfriend, and one day I woke up and it wasn't. I was freaked out about it, but then I was like, well, you know what? He's never hurt me, and he just gave me some amazing sex, so I have no problem." Mentioning that you had sex with ghosts can be a good marketing tactic, but my theory is that it can also explain away possible guilt about strong sexual arousal or wet dreams. In Sleep Paralysis, a guide to hypnagogic visions and visitors of the night, Ryan Hurd theorized that the sex with ghost phenomenon, or paralysis, is caused by a variety of issues and traumas in particular. However, he wrote, "Some sexual encounters are not necessarily unpleasant. For dreamers who do not have a traumatized past, sexual play during hypnagogic hallucinations can be healthy and exciting." This was brought to my attention when one reader from my website admitted that he cherishes the ephemeral spirits who approach him at night. He reports excitement, pleasure, and mental orgasms during his SP-induced hallucinations. He does not seek these escapades, but does not seem to mind too much, even though he admits it's somewhat strange that the spirit sometimes is not altogether human. Despite the enjoyment of such sex, these are not consensual experiences if you take them at face value. Every tale I've read about involves the human waking up to the sex already occurring, means there's no consent. A lack of control over one's arousal can easily be explained by nefarious supernatural entities, and not just ghosts. Claimed Cameroonian American doctor, conspiracy theorist, and pastor Stella Emanuel, many women suffer from astral sex regularly. Astral sex is the ability to project one's spirit spirit into the victim's body and have intercourse with it. This practice is very common among Satanists. They leave their physical bodies in a dormant state while they project their spirits into the body of whoever they want to have sex with. This line of thinking is similar to soul ties, which are a spiritualist reclamation of whorephobia body count dogma. I'm curious to know how common the belief in penetration by ghost or nefarious astral projection is, because roughly 40 to 65% of Americans believe in ghosts, depending on the poll or survey. I also want to know how common the belief in soul ties is, which is a very scary concept if you break it down. Beyond fears of ghost rape, unwanted pregnancy, and demon children, the potential of disease and sexual contamination, especially before modern medicine, made sex scary. This is evident from the historical criminalization of full-service sex work, as the women who ply their trade are seen as carriers of disease and destroyers of sexual mores more than the men who patron them. Think of purity logic. A key that opens many locks is a master key, but a lock opened by any key is a bad lock. As we discussed in this super old video on my channel, believers of soul tie rhetoric often claim that every person you have sex with leaves behind a fragment of their soul, essence, or spirit inside of you, gradually contaminating you, changing you, or harming you. Whether or not the sex is consensual, the soul tie happens. As twisted as this is and scary as fuck, like any other belief system, it serves a purpose. Feelings of shame, unrequited attachment, or any sign of mental illness is explained away by being contaminated from too much sex or the wrong partner.
Look, even though it's following you, I can still see it. It's not done with me either, okay? Like I told you, all you can do is pass it along to someone else. If it kills her, it gets me. It goes straight down the line to whoever started it.
In the 2014 film It Follows, the fear of a sexual encounter catching up with you by disease, unwanted child, violent confrontation, etc. is deftly depicted by writer and director David Robert Mitchell. In the movie, a sexual encounter with the wrong person leads to a shape-shifting entity following you until it catches up with you and kills you, unless you pass it on to somebody else, who hopefully themselves passes it along and prevents your demise.
I met a girl at a bar. It was one night stand. I don't even remember her name. I think that's where it came from.
The most obvious metaphor in the film is about catching a sexual disease. Said Mitchell in a 2015 interview, "The truth is, a lot of people read it that way, and I don't want to tell them they shouldn't. I made the film intentionally to be open to lots of different interpretations." While the sexual disease angle is obvious, I also thought about It Follows and that scene of the super creepy old woman steadily walking her way towards you when it was revealed that sports commentator and podcaster Shannon Sharpe was being sued by a woman for rape and abuse. Sharpe eventually settled, but before the incident caught up or was even reported, he repeatedly denied her allegations and misdirected his audience, which is typical of the abuser handbook, from Johnny Depp to P. Diddy. Shannon saw the specter of a sexual violence allegation on the horizon when nobody else did, and did what he could to avoid the consequences of it. But in the end, it followed. On the topic of sexual consequences, the fear of castration, whether that be a political canceling or literally removing a penis, is potent in sex and horror history. Take the cautionary tale of the Vagina Dentata. Did you know that it's possible for vaginas to grow teeth? As discussed by Gemma Angel in Pulling Teeth, Ovarian Teratomas and the Myth of Vagina Dentata, ovarian teratomas occur inside of cysts. It's unknown if these abnormal medical occurrences birth the vagina dentata lore that has been around in various cultures for centuries, but the legends historically represented the dangers of female sexuality. Sigmund Freud coined the term to describe being devoured by the mouth or vagina, and years down, the vagina dentata would be theorized as castration anxiety for men. A common thread in vagina dentata lore is the taming of the toothed vagina by a hero who makes the woman and her sexual organ suitable for marriage and childbearing. Among the Ainu people of Japan, legend tells of a woman who rejected a demon, so he hid inside her vagina and bit off the penises of two men she attempted to marry. She had to get help from a blacksmith, who made a steel penis and volunteered to use it inside of her so that the demon would bite down on it and shatter his teeth. This myth would inspire the Kanamara Matsuri, or the family-friendly festival of the steel phallus in Kawasaki, Japan. YouTube won't let me show you, but those are all dicks. That's a dick, that's a dick, that's a dick. Look, another dick! In a Vagina Dentata legend of India recounted in a 1943 British Journal of Medical Psychology, the landlord of a small village fell in love with a girl who had many lovers, but also 3 teeth in her vagina. The landlord sent subservients from lower castes to rape and fix the girl, with the journal recounting, the first held the girl down, and the second thrust his flint into her vagina and knocked out one of the teeth. The third inserted his tongs and pulled out the other 2. The girl wept with the pain, but she was consoled when the landlord came in and said he would now marry her immediately. Wrote Henrique Scatolin, these various myths always refer to the presence of a hero who fights against this terrible mother, plunging into her womb and eliminating her deadly teeth. In some myths, after they are removed, this terrifying figure loses her phallic characteristics and becomes a woman who has taken on feminine qualities and is desirable to men. But over time, these myths were reworked, wrote Emma Woods, to reclaim the symbolism of the vagina dentata as a powerful feminist emblem. Modern fictional interpretations endeavor to subvert the story arc, presenting it as a weapon against sexual predatory behavior in the rape revenge genre. The 2007 film Teeth by Mitchell Lichtenstein is emblematic of this. In the movie, an abstinence advocate discovers her vagina has teeth when a man attempts to rape her. This brings us to another sexual fear that permeates horror: the vengeful or aggrieved woman. In Indigenous American cultures, the deer woman or deer lady is an entity that can be benevolent but can harm men who have done wrong to women and children. This is a powerful idea because, reported the Indian Law Resource Center, 1 in 3 Native women will be raped in their lifetime, and 3 in 5 will be physically assaulted. Native women are more than twice as likely to be stalked than other women, and even worse, Native women are being murdered at a rate 10 times the national average. When Europeans arrived on this soil and encountered Indigenous women, their nudity and perceived exotic nature made them prime targets of subjugation, exploitation, and abuse. The civilizing or indoctrination of Indigenous people and their kidnapped children at boarding schools gave new meaning to myths like Deer Woman. She was depicted in a 2005 production by John Landis as a shapeshifter who seduced and killed 4 men for no reason. Cornelia Vlaicu analyzed the film, finding that it renders the native as radical, unintelligible, irrational, the killings without a motive, menacing otherness. Vlaicu discussed the story Deer Woman by Paula Gunn Allen, showing how the myth was used to address issues of toxic masculinity within the Indigenous community. In the short story, 2 Sioux men on a reservation in Oklahoma who were solely looking to sexually objectify their female counterparts encounter deer women with frightening results.
So you're really real.
Real? Well, do I look real?
I mean, yeah.
You want to touch my hooves?
Definitely not.
So what then? You heard of me your whole life? Yeah. What do you think I was fake? Think I was make-believe?
I just thought it was a story to keep all the uncles in line.
Yeah, well, some uncles ain't one stories to keep them in line. Those are the ones that I visit.
In FX's Reservation Dogs, the first and only show with an all-Indigenous crew and mostly Indigenous cast, Deer Lady was created after witnessing abuse at an American Indian boarding school. She's beautiful and alluring, but has the power to harm bad men. The revisioning of vagina dentata myths and the Deer Woman show that as sexual mores have changed, so have horror depictions of aggrieved women turned dangerous. In season 3 of American Horror Story Coven, for example, the witch Zoe Benson, whose deadly vagina accidentally kills her boyfriend when she loses her virginity, later takes revenge on a rapist by riding him to death. This show aired in 2013 on cable TV without backlash, though just 50 or 60 years ago, this would have only been available at a grindhouse. Grindhouses, which originally began as cheap theaters showing movies at cut-rate prices, competed with television in the 60s and 70s by offering films that weren't shown anywhere else. Cheap B-movies, porn, and increasingly bizarre and experimental horror movies attracted moviegoers who had no problem seeing most of the characters die before the credits rolled. In the midst of second-wave feminism, some people were alarmed that so many of the movies focused on terrified, screaming women being raped, tortured, and killed. Were these serving some kind of sexual fetish? In Wes Craven's 1972 directorial debut, The Last House on the Left, after two girls are brutally violated and killed by a group of men, one of the girls' parents takes revenge. Wrote my birthday twin Gene Siskel for the Chicago Tribune. The movie celebrates violent acts, particularly adult male abuse of young women. I felt a professional obligation to stick around to see if there was any socially redeeming value in the remainder of the movie, and found none. While the film was shocking at the time, it grossed a profitable $3 million at the box office, and gratuitous sexual assault and gore became commonplace, especially when a vengeance narrative is involved. Wrote Carol J. Clover in 1987, "Horror and pornography are the only two genres specifically devoted to the arousal of bodily sensation. They exist solely to horrify and stimulate, not always respectively." In this article, titled "Her Body Himself, Gender in the Slasher Film," Clover used 70s and 80s horror films to define the final girl, a usually virginal protagonist who is subject to watching her friends die and some form of psychological or physical torture before escaping and or killing her tormentor with a phallic or masculine tool prior to the credits rolling. All of the violence that occurred throughout the film is justified and forgiven because the final girl made it out safely. In Halloween, for example, that was Michael Myers' little sister Laurie Strode, whom he breaks out of a mental hospital to track down. After the sexually active teenagers of Halloween met grisly ends, so did the camp counselors in 1980's Friday the 13th. Jason's mom, the original killer, reveals the reason behind her hatred of the camp counselors. Her son drowned because the two teenagers who were supposed to be watching him were getting busy. The final girl, Alice, barely makes it out alive. In 1984's Nightmare on Elm Street, Nancy Thompson's best friend is ripped to shreds in a rape-style visual by Freddy immediately after a night of loud lovemaking. 33% of sex scenes in slasher films between 1980 and 1990 were linked to violence, a percentage that dropped by the end of the decade. What happened in the middle of the decade? In 1996's Scream, Sidney Prescott initially puts off having sex with her boyfriend, and the audience probably expects her to stick to this or be killed. Instead, Sidney not only has sex, but kills one of the crazed killers chasing her and her friends, and incapacitates the man who took her virginity. Sidney represented a new final girl in the horror genre, the badass who takes revenge. What exactly is the female badass taking vengeance against? The culture that created her. 3 years before Clover's assessments about the final girl, a group of researchers led a study about the link between horror, sex, and desensitization. They showed horror films featuring depicted violence against women over 5 days to a group of male test subjects. The men were then tasked with rendering a judgment on a trial in which a man beat and raped the woman while impersonating a police officer. In addition to the subjects having lessened reactions to the film's violence and gore by the 5th day, the authors wrote, "We also found a tendency for the desensitization to the filmed violence against women to spill over into subjects' judgments of a female victim in another context. Men who were exposed to the large doses of filmed violence against women judged the victim of a violent assault and rape to be significantly less injured and evaluated her as generally less worthy than the control group of subjects who saw no films." So, for starters, there's no doubt that desensitization from horror films is why gore and plot elements have become more gruesome in modern movies. If people were freaked out by the violence of 1974's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, for example, a first-time viewing of any horror film from the last 20 years, think torture porn like Hostel, would have made them shit themselves. Seriously, is there a movie where someone time travels to the 70s and shows one of those poor bastards a modern horror film or TV show? Because I'd love to see it. Anyways, becoming desensitized to cinematic violence and therefore seeking more gruesome thrills and gore doesn't mean you're automatically desensitized to real-life horrors. Said Cristabel Martinez, There's this popular criticism of horror that it desensitizes, and I think to a degree it does. But I don't think that really desensitizes, at least for me, from real horrors, especially when we're watching something like Gaza. That's a very real, close horror, and no amount of horror movie is gonna make that not horrifying for me. People make similar arguments that pornography desensitizes and makes people crave crueler and more violent sex and visuals. But this omits the full story. It's like giving people no information about a healthy diet, providing them with easily accessible and cheap unhealthy food, and then being shocked that they cannot moderate their diets. As is the running theme in Let's Talk About Sex History, comprehensive sex education would help humans in the long run, as future parents would inflict less trauma on their children and so forth. How do we truly measure people's reactions to porn when the world is historically steeped in misogyny? Most religions are rooted in misogyny, and most people are socialized to be misogynistic, including women themselves. Even with so much porn in the modern era, humans and laws are more concerned with consent and bodily autonomy than past eras before video porn existed. So you can't exactly say porn is the issue. Perhaps there would be less fretting over porn and less people becoming obsessed with finding the most degraded hardcore smut available if everyone received a comprehensive sex education in youth that didn't seek to repress but taught people about consent and healthy sexual relationships. Relatedly, on a tangent note, not beating your children while they're naked or semi-dressed or shit beating them at all would also help matters, as this type of abuse has been linked to mental illness and unhealthy adult behavior. But that's another topic for another day. All that being said, I think the men in that 1984 study who were being desensitized were likely already misogynistic and accepting of rape culture. They may have missed the point of the films they watched. One of the movies they viewed was I Spit on Your Grave, released the same year as Halloween in 1978. The film released to near universal panning, featuring nearly 30 minutes of footage surrounding a gang rape. The victim, Jennifer, asked for forgiveness for her upcoming sins in a church before going on a murderous rampage, killing her attackers one by one. Several European countries, like Ireland and West Germany, banned the film, while it received limited censored distribution in the United States and performed well on tape. Later assessments argued that Jennifer's revenge made the movie feminist, but this was not the mindset of the average viewer in the 70s. Including the graphic rape scene for an audience of mostly male viewers not concerned with misogyny was a poor choice.
Satan is our only hope. We're in league with the beast now, and we have to make a really big impression on him. And to do that, we're going to have to butcher you. And bleed you. And then Dirk here is going to wear your face. Relax, I'm kidding about the face. The rest is going to happen, though.
Another Jennifer, played by Megan Fox in the 2009 Diablo Cody film Jennifer's Body, is kidnapped by a fledgling band aspiring to make a deal with the devil. Believing that she is not a virgin, they sacrifice her. But because she's not a virgin, they have accidentally created a girl possessed by a succubus who feeds on teenage boys. Unlike the old legends of succubi, Jennifer seduces the boys and eats them before any actual sex occurs, subverting the traditional narrative. While it's clearly feminist for today's viewers, marketing for the movie in 2009 centered around the kiss between Amanda Seyfried and Megan Fox, because the studio wanted to focus on a male audience. Published real views at the time: if you're in search for a way to ogle Megan Fox's body, there are a lot of better ways to do it than subjecting yourself to this. Before Jennifer's Body was released, Megan Fox was feeling intense pressure to be a sex symbol because of her role in the successful Transformers film. The 23-year-old was engaged to a man 12 years her senior, whom she had begun dating at the fresh age of 18, and was a routine target of misogyny. When she criticized Transformers director Michael Bay, she faced backlash from the industry, and her reputation took a nosedive, which she believed played a role in the panning of Jennifer's Body. She'd later say about Jennifer, whom she related to, "I think somewhere inside of every girl they can relate to this idea of feeling like, my power has been taken away from me, and what would I do if I got all of that power and then some back?" Audiences really weren't pleased with it back in 2009, but now it's viewed from the feminist angle that Diablo Cody intended. Jennifer was taking revenge on the patriarchal culture that led to her being sacrificed in a Minnesota forest. Because of Jennifer's bodily transformation, the film was compared to the 2000 Karen Walton penned movie movie Ginger Snaps, in which a teen girl is transformed into a werewolf after the smell of her first period attracts one and bites her.
Are you sure it's just cramps? Just so you know, the words just and cramps, they don't go together.
Of her many changes, Ginger becomes sexually active, even having raw sex with a male classmate who catches her lycanthropy.
He's probably out there telling everyone what a freak I am. We'll say the same thing about him. It doesn't work like that. I mean, he got laid. I'm just a lay. He's a hero and I'm just a lay. A freak mutant lay.
You gave it to Jason. You had unprotected sex and you infected him. Oops.
Like the 1974 book and 1976 film Carrie, menstrual blood is a significant theme of horror and change in Ginger Snaps. But in Stephen King's groundbreaking debut, Carrie freaks out when she begins her period in a shower at school. Her mother Margaret never told her about this important stage of female puberty, rendering it taboo and scary. Margaret is a religious fanatic who equates Carrie's menstrual cycle with sin, and it's revealed that her sexual fears are rooted in her own trauma. She hates Carrie in part because she was conceived before marriage, forsaking her religious vows, and she also hates that Carrie's father later drunkenly raped her after they were married. Margaret believed that Carrie's telekinetic powers were from satanic possession, but the plot reminds me of the lore of the Cambion, and is again another reminder of why everyone deserves a comprehensive sex education.
There must be at least 5. The whore, she's corrupted. She dies first, leaving the last to live or die as fate decides. The virgin.
Me.
Virgin? We work with what we have.
The wronged female character and the final girl were fused together in the extremely subversive 2011 movie The Cabin in the Woods, co-written by Joss Whedon of Buffy the Vampire Slayer fame. In this movie, ancient evil entities require the sacrifice of 5 archetypes: the whore, the jock, the scholar, the fool, and the virgin. The sacrifice ensures the safety of the rest of the human race. As long as the whore dies first, as usually happens in most horror movies, and the virgin is saved for last. In a fabulously shocking ending, final girl Dana, who isn't actually a virgin and slept with her married professor, refuses to sacrifice the fool to save her own life and humanity, instead sparking up a doobie with him as the entities begin their destruction of the human race. Dana rejects the mantle of the good girl who sacrifices herself, her morals, and her body for the human race, like any mother, and instead sanctions its extinction. By the way, this movie was Whedon's answer to what he termed torture porn, where kids we don't care about are mutilated for hours. The horror movie with the expendable human beings in it, because I don't believe any human beings are. It's very rich for Whedon to have said this, as he's been accused of being sadistically mean to cast members of his productions. Still, he had a point. I gesture to a Serbian film as the supreme example of the type of torture porn I personally cannot stomach, because even reading the summarized plot makes me ill. A Serbian film which explored themes of necrophilia and pedophilia was widely panned, but found a fan in a reviewer named Harry Knowles, who wrote, "This is a fantastic, brilliant film that given time will eventually outgrow the absurd reactions of people that think it is a far harder film than it actually is." I was not surprised to learn that Knowles was outed as a rapist in 2017. I'm not saying that if you watched a Serbian film that you're a bad person, but I am saying that if you watched it and enjoyed it, I would never be surprised that you're a bad person. Am I canceled now? Oh well. In Ty West's X trilogy film starring Mia Goth, Maxine Minx is a porn actress and final girl who rebukes the patriarchal dominance of her fanatically religious father to seek stardom in the exploitative worlds of porn and Hollywood. Her 1918 counterpart, Pearl, also played by Goth, rejects the strict expectations of her parents and desires sexual enjoyment and fame, creating a fun and spooky narrative that reminded me that in the real world, women, no matter their choices, are never far away from sexual horror or abuse. end of the first film and the third film, Maxine shakes off her many traumas and keeps working in porn and Hollywood with her head held high. The threat of danger and exploitation don't deter her. While Hollywood delights in such fantasy vengeance films that show women fighting back against and transgressing society's evils, it perpetuates those same evils. In the 1968 Roman Polanski film Rosemary's Baby, based on the 1967 book by Ira Levin, the titular character is raped by Satan after being fed a drugged chocolate mousse. The incident is explained away by her husband Guy. He raped her because he didn't want to miss her ovulating. As it turns out, Guy sacrificed Rosemary's womb and sold his soul to the devil to grow his acting career. This perfidy is made more powerful for modern viewers who know about Gisele Pelicot, the French woman who was drugged by her husband for nearly a decade and allowed dozens of men to rape her while he filmed the acts. While disgusted about what's been done to her, Rosemary gives in to motherhood as her Satan-worshipping neighbors prepare excitedly for her to give birth. Rosemary's body is not just a vessel for evil, but a tool of patriarchal control. When her child is revealed to quite literally be the Antichrist, his cries override her trepidation, kick in her motherly instincts, and she bonds with him like a good mother is expected to. To me, who is a childless person, that's the scariest part of the damn movie. For the same reason why I was disturbed when the mother of the Antichrist in American Horror Story Murder House had plenty of warnings that she should get an abortion. Motherly instinct overrode self-preservation. The nurse at the ultrasound said she saw hooves, bitch. You live in California, make the appointment. But back to Rosemary's Baby.
Hail Adrian! Hail Adrian! Hail Satan! Hail Satan!
He chose you out of all the world, out of all the women in the whole world. He chose you. He arranged things because he wanted you to be the mother of his only living son.
His power is stronger than stronger. His might shall last longer than longer. Yes, Satan!
Catholics were pissed. The scene in which Rosemary holds a knife to her belly made British reviewer Ernest Betts write, "No scene which I have encountered in a picture is quite so horrifying as this one. All that stuff about violence and sex the censor talks about pales beside it." Keep in mind that the United Kingdom had just legalized abortion the year before, and abortion would be legalized in America in 1973. As such, Rosemary's Baby was officially labeled as a condemned film by the Catholic Church, with a spokesman saying, "Because of several scenes of nudity, this contemporary horror story about devil worship would qualify for a condemned rating. Much more serious, however, is the perverted use which the film makes of fundamental Christian beliefs, especially the events surrounding the birth of Christ and its mockery of religious persons and practices. The very technical excellence of the film serves to intensify its defamatory nature." The film became a classic and altered the future of horror, only becoming more ominous when Polanski's pregnant wife Sharon Tate was murdered by the Manson family the following year. Ira Levin went on to release The Stepford Wives, a horrific yet delicious novel introducing the idea of sex robots into the mainstream public consciousness during the era of second-wave feminism. The 1975 movie was decried as a ripoff by feminists like Betty Friedan because of its clear message about the dangers of the patriarchy. As for Rosemary's Baby, not only did it birth the fictional Antichrist, but a second monster as well. 9 years after its release, when Roman Polanski was revealed to be a sexual predator who raped a 13-year-old girl, he was protected by a cast of elite Hollywood players. Artistic talent outweighed decency. Like many abusers in Hollywood, Polanski went on to have a long career. Think of director Victor Salva, who raped a 12-year-old boy in 1988, was convicted of it and served time for it, and then went on to release the hit Jeepers Creepers. When he directed future Me Too activist Rose McGowan in a 2011 film, she was asked how she felt about him being a convicted and registered sex offender. Her response at the time? "I still don't really understand the whole story or history there, and I'd rather not, because it's not really my business. But he's an incredibly sweet and gentle man, lovely to his crew, and a very hard worker." In 2018, she'd explained her decision to work with him by saying, "I accidentally worked with a child molester, but I'll bet that you have too." Terrifying. We are never far away from sexual horror. The world is a scary place, often scarier than anything imagined in a horror film. Sexual tropes exhibited in folklore, literature, and movies showcase both our anxieties and our realities, while demonstrating the world's centuries of misogyny made stronger by religion and superstition. How these tropes have evolved over time and their depictions reveal how we have evolved over time. As American society grows increasingly conservative, fascist, and tribalized, how might our depictions of sexual horror change in the future? Only time will tell. That's it for this video. I hope you liked it and learned something new. What's your favorite horror movie? What sexual horror tropes did I miss? Make sure to tell me in the comments. Check out more spooky history on this playlist on my channel, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.